She died in this house, and it was her house in life, and it may still be her house even now.
When she was asked to run as mayor of Morristown, he told me, and she didn't ever accept that, but she was that kind of a woman.
A loving, very caring, very open, but strict granny.
Okay, everyone, good morning. I think we'll go ahead and get started, so we make a valiant attempt to sort of stay on schedule this morning. Again, my name is Tom Schaefer, for those of you that don't know me, but I think by now everybody does. I'm the current president of the Kellogg Club, and I'd like to welcome all of you to this very special event we're having this morning, April 6th, 2014, to welcome back the family members, in this case grandchildren, 3 grandchildren of Cornelia Kellogg, our namesake for the Kellogg Club, and give them the opportunity to visit again the Kellogg estate, the mansion, and to see the grounds and to remember their visits here. Some have more in-depth memories than others, but we're very happy to welcome you to the Kellogg Club, and it's our pleasure on behalf of the board and all the members to have you here today. What I'd like to do first is introduce some of the club members, board members that are here, and a lot of other people work behind the scenes to make this event happen. And one of those is Christine Thorsen. And unfortunately, Christine Thorsen, our club administrator, had a sudden death in the family. If you haven't heard, her stepfather passed away, who she was very close to. So even though she did all the work leading up to this, she was not able to be with us here today. So I know she wanted to be, and we miss her, and we thank her for all the work she did to make this happen. Current board members that are here today, Christina Wagner, Susanna Harris, please let everybody know. Laura Kajenka is there. Let's see. Who else? And Lisa Dahl is here. And Paulette, right there. How could I miss Paulette? Our vice president. And then we have a number of past presidents also here today with us. So we'll just kind of go around. Bob Napick, Tom Hollow, anybody?
Keith Culper.
Keith Culper, sorry. I know some better than others. Of course, Donna McNamara, Scott Whiteneck, Alan Painter. I think I got everybody on that side. On this side, we've got Carl Warner, and I think, if I missed any past presidents, and their spouses are here as well. I got Donna. So thank you all for coming again to share this special event. With us today, we have 3 of the grandchildren of Cornelia Kellogg. We have Eliza Kellogg Klose right here, and we have Ted Kellogg here, and we have Daniel Morris right there. So we really appreciate you all coming to share with us your memories and some reminiscences of the time when this was the Kellogg home, and Cornelia Kellogg, who is very significant in Morristown history and Morristown Family Services in particular, to commemorate this visit and this event. So you're probably wondering, how did all this happen? How did this come to pass in a very short period of time? And to tell you about that is Donna McNamara, because she is the prime mover that really made this all happen. So Donna, do you want to talk a little bit about how?
Some of you have maybe heard this story. The family service that Tom is referring to is now Cornerstone Family Programs, and many of you know I've been involved, along with Betsy's on the board of Cornerstone Family Programs. And we had a 200-year anniversary last year. And there were lots of things that we did, and one of the things we did was we wanted to research our history as an organization. 200 years, oh my gosh. And it started off with, actually we found the specific names of the 17 women who in 1813 founded the organization, and Betsy headed up a celebration as far as honoring our founders. So we went on, we did some other research, and it was through that we learned about the connection of Cornelia Kellogg with Cornerstone. Now, I always knew Cornelia Kellogg because of the connection with the Kellogg Club, but I really didn't understand, and nobody else did. So we find out all this information. We say, wow, this woman, Cornelia Kellogg, for 34 years, headed up Cornerstone Family Program, and she transformed the whole place. And without going through that whole thing, I mean, this was a real mover and shaker. Okay, so we said, oh, maybe we could try and find some descendants of Cornelia. So we had a fellow, he was on a volunteer basis, an historian working with us, researched. I and talked with past presidents that had moved away, etc. And we get 2 leads that we think are live. You know, when I say I don't mean it that way. we think there's maybe some probability here, okay? Okay, so I write this letter, you know, explaining who we are, and, you know, what's happening with the bicentennial and this and that. We send off these 2 letters, and some pictures of Cornelia Kellogg and the Kellogg Club. Send off these letters, nothing, nada. Don't hear. So we figure, well, you know, wrong address, I mean, you know, there are Kellogg's along the way. We tried our best, couldn't find anything. And this actually, I had done this like in, maybe it was around Christmas time, inviting these 2 Kellogg people that I knew to what was going to be a ball, that we were having a bicentennial ball. It was probably almost a whole year later. I'm sitting in the kitchen, I'm doing the groceries or whatever, I'm sitting in the kitchen, my cell phone rings, and I'll tell you, I usually don't answer my cell phone, you know, unless I know. I mean, it was just, my mind was distracted, so by mistake, kind of, I hit the, you know, the button, said hello, and Eliza says, this is Eliza Kellogg Klose. Well, I mean, I just not on the table. I mean, I could not believe it. And I'm also, the story, well, I don't know, Eliza, why don't you tell us the story? Why did it take you a year to get back to me?
Well, I had a son named Brennan who just didn't happen to, he was renting my house in Washington, and he didn't happen to open the mail. I don't know, he was so busy with his work and stuff that he suddenly opened the mail, and there he found this, and he sent it to me, and I opened it, and it was all wonderful things that Donna had sent me year before.
So with this, Eliza and I had this great conversation, and started to talk, and it was through Eliza. She said, well, you know, I've got some of the other family members' names, and I'm willing to reach out to them. So Eliza was our link. You know, Cornelia was our link first, and then Eliza then reached out to other family members and told them about us, told them about Cornerstone. And there's actually, because this is mostly about the Kellogg Club, I will say that there have been several members of the Kellogg family of the generation now who, during our bicentennial campaign, did make contributions to Cornerstone, which was very much appreciated. And there's a silver bowl up here that Steve Morris, who would be Daniel's brother, also has given to Cornerstone family programs. And Cornelia Kellogg was actually for 34 years the president of Cornerstone. And this silver bowl, it says, with deep appreciation for the inspiring leadership, 1913 to 1946, from the Board of Managers of Family Service of Morris County, is actually, when she started It was the Female Charitable Society. Within about a couple of years, she consolidated all these organizations, and it became the Central Bureau of Social Service. Now, there's a long one. But Central Service of a Social Service. And then by the time she left, just as she was leaving, that name was just not making it, and they changed the name then to Family Service of Morris County. And then for many reasons we could go through, we now, with the bicentennial, the same organization now is Cornerstone Family Programs. So the family has connected with the Cornerstone part, and this is an opportunity to connect with the Kellogg Club part. Okay, where's Tom? Oh, good.
Yeah. Well done.
Thank you, Donna. Really appreciate it so everybody can understand, sort of how fortuitous this is that all this happened. And it really taught me a lesson, too, that if you send a letter and you don't hear anything, don't give up. Because it may be a year down the road, and then all of a sudden you get a magnificent phone call. So that's what I learned from all of that. Tenacity, right? And hope that all is not lost. Sometimes letters take a while to get there, and sometimes they take a while to be opened and responded to. So don't fill in too much about what really happened. What we'd like to do now is if we could invite Eliza and Ted and Daniel to come up at this table here, and if you don't mind sharing a few of your reminiscences and about the day today. And we did have some questions that we sent to you to kind of stimulate the conversation, but anything you'd like to talk about, I'm sure everybody would appreciate hearing.
Eliza should sit. Okay, I thought I'd start because I know the least. I was around 10 or 12 years old when CVWK died, so I don't have.
You just said that CVWK. I don't think most people know what that is.
Cornelia Van Wyck Kellogg. So CVWK. So since I have very few personal recollections of her, what I can do is I can give you a couple of things. Number one is a pamphlet from the Kellogg Club that was published in 1983, which some of the members have seen and gone, what's this? So apparently this was before the internet. I think a lot of this stuff may be on your website, but I think hopefully this will be useful for your own historical purposes. And the second thing that I can do is read you just a brief section out of, this is something called A Sketch of the Life and Character of Edmund Drake Halsey. Now, my name is Edmund Drake Kellogg, so we are not very original when it comes to naming people. But it was written by the Reverend Theodore Freelingshuisen, which I gather is See, so there are some connections here, and what this will allow me to do is to put CVWK, now that you're all insiders, since you're club members, you now can call her CVWK. You have the permission from the family to put her life in some historical context, if that would be okay with you. And I will also leave you this. It's got some wonderful, nice pictures of people with large mustaches, which also. This is her husband is up on the mantelpiece there. So this is going to be just a brief summary of what he did, and we'll lead you into CVWK. And I need my vocals. Edmund Drake Halsey was born in September 11, 1840. His parents were Samuel Beach Halsey and Sarah Dubois Jackson. He was fitted for college at Morristown Academy. That's still around here. And Phillips Academy, Andover, Mass., and graduated from the latter institution in 1857. In the same year, he entered as the sophomore class of Nassau Hall and graduated with the philosophical oration in 1860. This is how they spoke in those days. He then entered upon the study of law at Morristown with his brother Samuel S. Halsey. In August 1862, his reading of law was interrupted by his enlisting as a private in Company K, 15th Regiment, New Jersey Volunteers. On January 15, 1863, he was promoted to Sergeant Major in place of John P. Fowler, who had been killed. In 5 months, June 19th, 1863, he was commissioned as second lieutenant, Company F, and in 1 month, 1863, behind that is you're sort of getting an idea these guys are dropping like flies. Right? Battlefield promotions were happening quickly. That doesn't just happen. He was promoted to first lieutenant, Company D. After an interval of a month, in August 12, 1863, he was mustered and detailed as acting adjutant. And within a year after the first promotion from the ranks on January 1st, 64, he was commissioned to first lieutenant and adjutant. For a year previous of his honorable discharge on January 1st, and due to his ill health, he served almost continuously as judge advocate of courts martial. He was in all the marches and engagements of his regiment for the 2 years and a half in which he had no small part in its most eventful history. On his return home, he resumed the study of law and was admitted to the bar in November term 1865 as an attorney and as a counselor in February 1869. From then, let me see, to the day, from September 18th, 1867 to the day of his death, he was a trustee of the Rockaway Presbyterian Church. For a number of years, he was either a teacher or its superintendent for 4 years of the Sabbath school in the same church. From the time of its organization in 1881, he was a trustee of the Morris County Children's Home. He was a life member of the New York and New Jersey Historical Societies and a secretary and afterwards treasurer of the Washington Association of New Jersey. He was a member of the Loyal Legion, a member of the Society of the Army of the Potomac and the Grand Army of the Republic. In 1896, he joined the New Jersey Society of the Order of the Founders of the Patriots of America. As a practical engineer, he took part in the work of commission, which settled the boundary between New Jersey and New York. Since 1868, he had been a director, when he died, of the president and was president of the National Iron Bank of Morristown. He was also director of the Morristown Gas Light Company and a manager of the Morris County Savings Bank. On May 27, 1869, he was married by Reverend J.S.B. Hodges, D.D., to Mary Halsey Darcy, a daughter of Henry Gray and Anne Mackenzie Drake Darcy. 2 children survive him: Edmund Drake Halsey, a graduate of Princeton College in 1894, and at present a student of law and Cornelia Van Wyck Halsey, now studying at Bryn Mawr College. So, there we go. So there's the intro. Here we go. That's the context.
Yeah, that's great.
Now, the two Kellogg's on either side of me know a great deal more than I do, but I spent some time here at this house, so I can talk about that. Now, to begin with, I would like to give you a picture of my grandmother in front of this window. This was, and Darcy Halsey Burgund Darcy Kellogg Burgund gave me this picture, and so I will put it here. Is that right? Yes.
Isn't that terrific?
Yeah. And we used to come and visit every year at this house. At the time, I was young and I wasn't aware of how special the house is. That today has been taken care of. I realize it's really amazing how to think that my grandmother and grandfather really lived in this way, an upstairs, downstairs sort of life, in the middle of Morristown, New Jersey. My father our father cared a lot about the history of the place, and so he took Edmund Drake Halsey's papers, and they were upstairs in this house, and we spent a lot of time looking at those papers, and we have them now. I think that Dan will tell us something about them, but the kinds of stuff that I can remember, and maybe I can talk about them from these questions a little bit. Let's see, that's yours.
Yeah.
Let's see.
That's Pete's and that's mine.
Okay. Our stories about what it was like. And we came to the house right after my father came back from the Second World War, Edmund Halsey Kellogg. And he brought us here, and us at the time was was me and my sister and my brother Roger, who is not here today. neither of the two of them are here today. But because we spent 3 or 4 months, and my sister and I were sent to school at a school called Oakley Hall. Do you know where Oakley Hall is? No? Anyway, it was somewhere out here. And it was all the grades together, 8th through kindergarten in the one place. But my sister went in the kindergarten, and I went on the stage, which is where we had all the classes lined up. And I learned how to read there. And so when I went to Washington, which is where my father ended up after the war, I knew how to read already, and I was moved right up to the front of the class, which was very nice. And so we had that time here, and then we used to come up every year from Washington to Maine, where my grandmother Kellogg, and at this point he was no longer alive. My mother didn't know my grandfather, Frederick, because he had died in 1935, and they were married in 1938. So she was the person who was this house. And when she died, she was the only one of 7 children to survive, which is quite amazing. But during the time, 1967, when she died, all the things were brought up, and this house had enough furniture in it for 7 different houses to be furnished from, not everything, but I had a clock and a table and a this, that, and the other thing, and Selena has a gun and a lot. I don't know why.
She has a gun? Wait. She's not still mad at
That's
me,
where
is
that
she?
gun went.
Her husband chose the gun. But it was one of the Revolutionary rifles. And so each one of us took some time. Those who were old enough.
Yeah,
Not me.
or me.
So, I can go on for a long time, and you can, if you have questions, ask them to me later. But the thing is that we spent a great deal of time with Granny Kellogg, and Granny was a wonderful person, and she saw us off, for instance, with a party, with the tables set up like this, when we went to Cambodia. And that was my cousin Mimi Treslow's only last chance, last time to see her father, who died that summer. And so she and I were about the same age, and we had a party here. And so I look out at the tables now, and I think about that party and how she saw us all off. And now Dan is going to talk.
When Granny, I'll just call her Granny, died in '67, I was all of 11 years old, which meant Penny and I were about the same age. And my memories are of someone about this hall, which you see a very different house than you see now. Everything is much bigger. Being the family ghoul, otherwise known as genealogist, right there, I've given you all the genealogy of the Kellogg family. It starts with my mother and goes back, because that way I get both Frederick and Granny. Otherwise, you can't get both sides of it. And I'll leave that here. I sent out your questionnaire to my brothers. I have 3 brothers. They obviously are not here, but my father's younger brother died this past week, so that's last night. I could not make the gala, A, because we had plans in New York, which we had to scrap, but more importantly, B, because I had to go to Hartford yesterday for the celebration of his life. And last night I was somewhat of a zombie when I got back. But to go through, first of all, my brother, oldest brother, it's interesting because this is perspective from the oldest to the youngest, Morris. Keeping in mind, Morris's were Granny's youngest daughter's children. My mother was Granny's youngest daughter. For your questions, when did you visit Granny? Typically Easter, Christmas, and summer at Minot's Island. How old were you from birth through my mid-teens? Was it on special occasions or holidays? Both. What was your fondest memory of your grandmother? Her incredible patience with us children, teaching us canasta and other fun games. What was your most vivid remembrance of this house? The top story, where my brother Steve and I often slept. We spent one night afraid to go to the bathroom because of the dark passageway we would have to negotiate to get there. We had just seen The Thing. Also loved the dumbwaiter, which we rode up and down. What did the house look like back then? I remember all the paintings, mostly portraits, and the grand furniture. What do you remember about the grounds when you were a child? The incredible gardens, both inside and outside, or both outside and inside the greenhouse. He didn't remember I think we all remember the stone wall, but we couldn't see the front of the house because it was a solid wall of rhododendrons, and we never came in the front door. We always came in the back door, if you will. Was there a room in the house or part of the grounds that was your favorite? I love poking around the attic and all things we discovered, including diaries written by a family member who also served in the New Jersey Company during the Civil War. Also located his 6-shooter and various other military garb. I also loved the small breakfast dining room across from the main dining room. What was Morristown like back then? Don't really remember. Are there any family stories you can share about your grandfather, Frederick? He died when my mother was still a young girl, long before she married my father. The only story that I heard was how he met and courted my grandmother. Are there any family stories you can share about your grandmother? No particular story comes to mind, just how she was always so welcoming and open to us children. I never saw her angry or pass judgmental word on anyone. Were you influenced by either of your grandparents? Granny was an incredible active listener, a trait that she passed on to my mom, Cornelia. I have always tried to emulate her and have fallen well short of that very high mark. I can agree with that. Pete has never been a great listener. He's learning. Pete was like my father. My father was a naval commander in World War II, and there was one way of doing things, his. In what ways did your parents anticipate visiting Granny? Mom always looked forward to them. Granny was special to her, and in my mother's final days, she would often talk to her when her mind wasn't present. In other words, Mom used to talk to Granny from her bedside long after Granny had passed away. My father was also open to her visits to our house, though he rarely accompanied us when we went to Morristown. And then my recollections, which are a little bit more longer than Pete's. When did you visit Granny? How old were you? I was very young, obviously. Granny died in '67 and I was born in 1956. What was your fondest memory of Granny? Having tea with her in the living room, especially out here, and doing jigsaw puzzles with her. Right, there used to be a big table here and used to have a jigsaw puzzle on it almost always. And I love jigsaw puzzles ever since because of that. What was your most vivid memory or remembrance of the house? Playing hide and seek throughout the house and gardens. And I say throughout, those gardens were made to be walked down and looked at. We hid in them. Box bushes are especially good for hiding a 6-year-old or 7-year-old. We probably wreaked havoc on the box bushes, but we didn't care. And of course, the dumbwaiter. Dumbwaiters are great fun for scaring the staff. You ride up in them, you ride down, and you knock. And someone opens, you go, blah! That's probably why I was never allowed in the basement. How was it furnished back then with classic furniture and mementos from her earlier life and travels. She traveled extensively around the Orient and Europe and had lots of these little memories. What do you remember about the grounds from when you were a child? All were kept perfectly. Items like, the one thing that stuck in my mind is there was an old, like, seed starter box that was long unused, and I just remember looking at it going, I wonder what that was from way back then. My cousin Lily and I were forever playing hide and seek, as I mentioned, and having Peter, who was her chauffeur, be the person that did the seeking as we did the hiding. That was more fun for us. When was a red brick wall built? We don't remember. And general notes, if you will, thoughts about and remembrances of Granny: loving, caring, strict, always demanding that I stand or sit straight up. If you notice, I don't slouch. That was Granny. Loved to do Dino Point and do jigsaw puzzles. Taught me some card games. Told me wonderful stories of her travels, of which, alas, I didn't preserve. Special moments: having breakfast with her in the small breakfast room across from the main dining room, attending full family gatherings and seeing that dining room completely full of relatives. In fact, at one point, someone, I think, got married. I don't remember who it was, but we had a picture of all of us all the way across the back porch, down either side. Of course, Ted and I were like playing attacking each other when they took the picture. I have that picture somewhere, which I will find. I'm just not sure where it is. Other memories of the bedroom that I always stayed in: you go up the stairs, turn right, with now the apartment. That was my bedroom. My mother would sleep on the other side of the hall, and that bathroom in the middle, which I always remember had the classic toilet with the box of water up on top and long chain, which was kind of an old thing, I guess, and a great big tub that I used to think I was going to drown in. A fun-filled and carefree childhood days spent idling around the gardens or grounds, wondering what had gone on here before I was born, and playing in and hiding in the many bushes that lined the pathways. Of the old bathroom with the old style toilet just mentioned, sorting through the many unused bedrooms on the third floor in my slightly older years, now filled with boxes of letters, collecting their stamps. I used to be an ardent stamp collector, to my mother's great unhappiness. Sitting within the enclosed porch out there, reading some of the many books that were there, doing jigsaw puzzles with Granny in our living room until I was forced to go off to bed. Mothers have a way of doing that. Also having tea, and parentheses, and yummy cookies with her and my mother in the living room. Sneaking into the kitchen to grab the occasional yummy cookie after I was sent to bed, and hoping that the cook wouldn't catch me. The large Cadillac limousines that Granny was always driven around in by our friend Peter. Memories of Peter. My cousin Lily, who's not here, and my best friend is Peter, didn't have any children of his own, and so we, being the pranky and sort of crazy young kids, were kind of adopted by him. And the house down there, or actually where the pool house now is, was the garage for the limousines, and above that is where Peter lived, which we were not allowed in. But being that he was our play friend, when we got released after breakfast, we'd hustle down there and take the pebbles and toss them against his window to cause him to come down and play with us. We were rats, but that's okay. Of seeing him in his uniform and cap, driving Granny wherever she went. And I don't remember if this was down here or in Maine, because Granny also had a house in Maine that she had in the summertime that she rented, and we used to think of it as this great big enormous mansion. I've been back and it's not that big. But as was the people that own it now told me, when you're this high, stairs are very big. And you crawl up each stair, there's a lot of stairs. But I don't remember if it was here or there, but she used to have a cook by the name of Mulla. And memories of Mulla and what befell you and what was rumored to befall you if you were caught snitching a cookie. And Mulla had a great big rolling pin, which we were. I was chased out with the rolling pin only once. And then finally, I'm waking up that summer morning when I was at summer camp at Camp Monadnock, New Hampshire, and being very aware that my granny had just passed away. Just woke me up, and I just felt she was dead. And finding out that evening that, in fact, she had died that morning. And that's about the size of it.
Probably have time for one or two questions from the group, if you wouldn't mind.
You mentioned a greenhouse. Where was the greenhouse?
The big greenhouse. That was on the side of the house.
Yeah.
I just don't remember exactly where.
A detached building?
Yeah, I think so. I remember going in it, and I remember seeing the old windows in it, and the boxes and boxes of plants, and hiding underneath it. But I don't remember exactly where it was. It's like that cottage. I have no memory of it. None. But when you're that high, you remember certain things.
Ted, I guess, you mentioned the gas company.
Yes.
It's my understanding that there was a gas generator down here where the pool is, and it supplied all the houses around here.
Well, you notice that I very cleverly didn't say anything about being here because I don't really remember much about it, but I can give you background. But yeah, I presume when you did the fixing up of this place, did you find gas lines here? I mean, were some of these lamps gas lamps?
The houses, our house across the street has them. And,
Sure.
so, but he was president of the gas company, and it was his company
Right.
that was based here.
That was Granny's father.
Granny's father, yes, that's correct. And I will leave you all these notes, and he's got an extensive review of the man, the historian. He was a historian, and all those details will be in here.
You know, I think one of the things that is fascinating probably to every member of this club is how Morristown is connected to the history of our country. And of course, you know, we think about what could have happened if, for example, during the Revolutionary War, what could have happened if the British decided that, you know, this would be a great time to attack our guys while they were encamped here at Jockey Hollow. What could have happened if? And somehow Morristown, because it was located in a certain area, proximity to New York City and all that, and we had these mountains around us, these hillsides, we were protected, and Morristown was allowed to develop from a village into a town. And I guess when the Kelloggs show up and become prominent, it's a lot that we don't know about that history. You know, most of the members will say, well, you know, I belong to the Kellogg Club and I know it has historical prominence, it has importance. But I don't think we ever really knew some of the things that you're sharing with us today. And it's very helpful because this is stuff now can be passed on to other members. So thank you for that. That's really outstanding. And that you took the time to come down here. So, and Donna, thank you too for organizing this. But I guess my question is, you know, one of the things about the house, you'll notice that it really looks beautiful today, partially because of the work that some of our presidents have done. One of our presidents here, in particular, Alan's going to say his name. Scott. Sorry, Scott. I'm sorry, Scott. Had so much to do with the wiring of this room and putting up these beautiful lights. And I'm very interested in fine art. And so you mentioned something about the paintings that were here. Can you tell us anything about that? Or were you kids too young?
Well, we've seen them at our house.
We've seen them because, as Ted says, that they've spread around. All the families have pictures up on the wall that came. In some cases were really good pictures. In some cases they had really good frames. So we put other pictures or...
Was there historical significance to the paintings in particular, or did just...
I don't think so.
family members or anything like that?
Only to family members,
Yeah.
just because you'd see what your ancestors would look like. I had never seen that painting, which is lovely.
I had never seen it either.
Right.
I know other members have seen that. Has this been around?
Yeah, it's been in the office.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
and
okay.
so, depending on whether or not you were in the office, yeah.
I tried to stay away.
We kind of had this imagining that maybe, he had been in the office, that front office.
We didn't have an office, Tom.
Yeah. But this is remarkable, when Ted, walked in, I mean, I had seen both, I'd seen Ted last night, and I'd seen the picture. But when Ted was standing next to the portrait of his grandfather, it was like, whoa. It really, really incredible.
There's something about this genetic thing that seems to work, and it seems to be. Yeah. I just got to grow my mustache out a bit more so I can look more like the man.
I have a couple of questions, just a historical perspective. Was there a pool on the property?
No.
No.
So back in '68, I guess the neighborhood put the first one in. And to your remembrance, there's a flat piece of property right outside that window.
Tennis
Tennis
court.
court.
Tennis court.
Tennis court.
Tennis court.
We kind of guessed that it might be. And the third question is the back house, which Scott and other members, I can't emphasize how many hours people in this room put in getting this place going. And Scott and the group fixed that back house. What was that back house? Not the pool house.
The little house that's in the back.
Yeah.
I remember that there was somebody renting it. It was about somebody who was a good friend of the family, but I don't remember very much about him. So, but the house was there.
It wasn't.
It was there. I don't know that the L, that's the lower L, was off it, because I don't remember that, but the house itself was there. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
When you each visited, where did you reside at that time?
Well, you go up the stairs.
No, I
turn
mean,
right.
where did you
Oh,
come?
Long Island,
Long Island.
Oyster Bay.
In Washington, D.C.
And Dusseldorf, Germany, so we didn't get to hear much.
There's a pool, the pool table downstairs.
Yeah.
Was that in the house?
Yes, it was.
Where?
I know when
Downstairs,
when
no
Granny
sitting
died,
room.
there were a lot of the relatives that wanted to take that and realized there was no way to get it out.
Yeah, there's no way.
It must have been built around, or the house around it.
It does have pads sunk down several feet. So it was, we've moved it a couple times, and so that for leveling purposes, it was well thought out. So it's quite a terrific pool table. And there was a fountain out in part of the gardens. Was that there when you were children? I'm assuming it had to be.
I'm assuming it had to be. I can sort of see it in my memory, but I don't remember it going, because I didn't spend much time in the gardens. I spent much more time up here with Granny.
I spent lots of time hiding in the gardens. Not observing, hiding.
It's a great house for hiding.
Oh boy, believe
Oh,
me.
it was a good place.
Believe me, you could hide well.
It's wonderful to hear you talk about this house as a family house and a wonderful place to gather. And I don't know about many members here today, but for the longest time we've struggled what to call the room that we're in now. It's been called the Grand Lounge, it's been called the ballroom, but now we know it was the living room.
It was the living room.
And that's wonderful to know. What is the room just on the other side of here, right from the hallway? What was that used for? Do you remember?
The big dining room?
There's a little
Right
room
between the dining room.
Well, there was the room to the immediate left. I don't know which is where Mrs. Riley used to work on my grandmother's house. Well, she was the financial person.
Okay.
And she used to come and sit there.
Like a personal secretary?
The personal secretary, I guess. Because once my grandfather died, she didn't really know much about those things, and so Mrs. Riley.
And you referred to the room next to Mrs. Riley's office as the breakfast
The
room.
breakfast room.
Well, there's a little room right on the other side of this living room, directly from the hall. And I wonder, you'll have to take a look at it.
Right here.
Oh,
The dining room.
Before you go to
it
the
was
dining
just a room.
Small
room, where we walked through it out to the porch, the glassed-in porch, and I personally didn't know much about it, but maybe my father would have. We'll have to think. I don't know what that is. Maybe Darcy's family would know
Right.
something.
This has all built-in bookcases and things around
Yeah.
the fireplace, so.
Oh, there were a lot of bookcases?
I think there's.
Yeah, that's a small one. I was wondering whether it was another sitting room or library.
You didn't have a
Another room full
bar
of
set
things.
up in that room like we always do?
Sure, why not?
Well done.
There was a room full of things to look at. Of course, I never came back after I moved to New Jersey 20 years ago. It was my mother, bless her soul, convinced me that this was given to a women's club. And that when men were not welcome. So I never even thought of coming back.
And along those same lines, was the kitchen downstairs? Was that always the kitchen there, or was it downstairs?
No, it was right here. It was just
on
in
the
the
main.
Oh, yeah.
back of the house.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You said your family went up to Maine. Where was it in Maine that Granny had her house?
Islesboro Island off the coast of Maine.
Penobscot Bay, there's a thing called Minot's Island, and it's right off that area.
Islesboro, which was a summer house. Minot's came before that, which I never knew Minot's. You knew
You didn't know
Minot's.
Minot's?
That was before me.
Camden is probably the closest town
Okay,
to
that's a
that.
good reference point.
For Islesboro, you
You sailed out there.
or you take the ferry from Lincolnville.
The club's going to celebrate its 50th anniversary in 4 short years. Any particular advice or tips that you can think of to share with the club as it prepares to make a big deal out of that 50th?
Well, there's a lot of history here. I mean, I think some of this could come in handy in terms of putting this in terms of its place in U.S. history and its understanding of, obviously, the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, and where that all fits in. That's, I guess, what I would suggest.
Yes.
Who were some of the prominent people that you guys met during your grandmother's time that came to this house?
I don't think that there were that many. I mean, when Frederick Kellogg was here, was alive, I'm sure they did entertain a lot of people, but I don't think that my grandmother did. She didn't talk about it very much.
Well, Eleanor Roosevelt was at Frederick's funeral and spoke. So
That's because Frederick defended the Roosevelts when he defended the Teapot Dome and Central and Standard Oil.
Right. So
he did quite effective.
Okay. So Teapot Dome, which was a scandal. Yeah, he was involved in the defense of that. So everybody gets a defense lawyer, and he was involved in that. One story of his is that he apparently was very good at languages, and he was going to do a defense of a case down in Mexico, and he learned Spanish on the way down to do it, and then defended a case in Spanish. So
Oh my gosh, brilliant.
I guess trains took a little longer to get to Mexico in those days. Still, it was an accomplishment. So he's a pretty bright guy.
Although, how did you ever told how they met?
No, let's hear that story.
I don't know how completely accurate it is because some facts get extruded on occasion. But evidently, Granny was going down the Grand Canyon to see it, and Frederick was coming up on the same trail, and that trail is rather narrow. And evidently, Granny, as they went around, the two, Granny swooned and started to fall off, and he jumped off and saved her.
Oh, story.
And that was how they met.
Great. What year was that?
I wouldn't even want to guess.
1900.
Long before I was born.
And I cannot believe, I mean, how adventuresome, both of them, to be hiking in the Grand Canyon in the 1900s.
I think they were on mules.
Well, okay, but I mean, that is like amazing. I mean, that is really unusual, and particularly for your grandmother, but for both of them.
Intrepid.
You know, I mean, there are people that would consider that an adventure today. You know,
I do.
So how old was Frederick Kellogg when he passed away?
Well,
That's in there.
he was born in 1867.
Right.
Oh, yes, and
Okay, just trying to put
we
a
have
time.
the exact year, so.
And I've also heard that there's a Halloween party that you guys have.
Yes.
Granny died in the dining room with my brother there, who was his second year in medical school. This was this is his first experience with having this happen, and so so that's a squeaky story you can say, but you know, scare your children with it, you know. Keep them out of the dumbwaiters or whatever. You know. She's actually haunting the dumbwaiter.
I want to comment on the Halloween party.
Okay.
So we used to take the downstairs in the basement, the long hall corridor.
Right.
We used to completely transform that into just a terrifying wall of horror. We don't do it anymore because, you know, it's, I guess.
Scares the children.
It's too terrifying.
But I'm sure you guys would have enjoyed that when you were kids. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
My brothers had the same problem up on the third floor, as I read.
Haunted, yeah. Definitely, there is some sort of spirit that haunts this place, that's for sure.
Well, the lights flickered this morning. Scott was standing there, we saw it.
She's coming back for this party, that'll be a nice thought.
Any other final question anybody would like to ask? No? Okay, well, we have one very important thing to do before we finish here. I think you should stay, Eliza.
Yes, I'll stay. I just want to make sure I want to go in.
So, the Kellogg Club fortunately is in touch with the family now and has reestablished this connection to our namesake. And as president, one of the things I have always talked about is further developing the history of the club itself, as well as the Kellogg family estate that it's named for. And we're doing various different things to accomplish that, and Donna's been a big part of that in reestablishing the connection with the family. And because of that, and because of the work that Donna did to do that, and your telephone call, things are happening. One of the most important things is the presentation we're going to do now from Frederick Rogers Kellogg and Mimi, who are going to be the beneficiaries of another very fine portrait that's been restored, who we now know as CVWK.
We always called her Cornelia.
If you please help me, Eliza.
I think a legacy that she passed on was a sense of a need to give back to the community, a sense that if you are born to the kind of privilege that she was born to, that you give back of time, treasure, and talent. That was obviously a deep value that she held, and it is carried on today beautifully by the Cornerstone Project.